Hey. That's what Say does, right? Hey. This is episode number 399 of WP Watercooler. Free plugins at a nice price. Brought to you by ServerPress, Maker's Desktop Server. They make local WordPress development easy. Check them out over at ServerPress.com. I'm Jason Tucker. You can find me at Jason Tucker on the Twitters.
I'm Steve Zehngut. I'm the founder of Zeek Interactive, and I run the OC WordPress meetup. She's not Say Reed. She's not here. Yeah.
And it's your boy Jason Cosper back at it again on the most influential WordPress podcast. Let's do it.
You can go and follow this influential WordPress podcast by going to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. And lastly, you can go over to Discord, go to WPwartercooler.com/Discord, and that's where you can find Scott hanging out with himself over in Discord, because no one else is in Discord.
Somebody
What's going
talk
on?
to me.
I think we are the most
people?
influential WordPress podcast on Fridays from 11 to 11:30.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
You don't have to qualify it. We're the most influential WordPress podcast.
in Las Vegas.
Prove us
Las
wrong.
Vegas.
Oh, wow. We're
Hey
huge
man, I'm
in
prepared.
Vegas.
I'm prepared. So yeah, so we're talking about free plugins and how you can support free plugins, how plugins that are free can, fund their efforts, and how you can just make sure that they stick around. You know, a wise woman once said on the previous episode of the show that the idea of how do you help pay for this stuff. You know, this is one of those things. And Scott was talking about this on the previous show. And we're like, you know what? Let's have Scott come back on, talk with Say, and do all that. Say's not here. So it's the three of us knuckleheads that have to talk about this.
Welcome back, Scott.
Thanks for having me back. I feel maybe afraid that you asked me back so soon, but also extremely displeased that I was not on episode 400. Like that's like an even number, and I'm on 399. It's like so close. Like, am I on sale?
It's the Eve. No, this is the Eve episode.
Yeah.
Episode. Exactly. So Scott, for folks that haven't watched the previous episode, can you tell us a little bit about like what you're doing and what your product is, and then how are you funding it?
Sure.
You want to start off with that?
Might as well. Sounds like a
Yeah.
good place to start. So I am the lead developer of the Pods Framework plugin. I'm also a product manager at Paid Memberships Pro. One of those is free, and the other one is free. They both have different models. Pods Framework itself is entirely funded by donations and sponsors and people like that. The Paid Memberships Pro is freely available on WordPress.org. You can find all of their code on GitHub, even the paid add-ons and stuff, but they sell support. So you get access to support and maybe an easier way to update your plugins and everything else, and better materials to look at on the site, better support materials and all that, and support tickets and all that. So you get a lot more things built into that support side. So those are just two of the models I've seen. And Pods has been struggling, along with many other free plugins on .org, with no premium or freemium solution for itself. And I think that's a challenge, because there's plugins like ACF. You've got a free version and you have the pro version. So that's got a premium, freemium kind of solution. Mm-hmm. Then you have a plugin like Types, which used to be free, and now it's completely premium, which is part of Toolset. You've got plugins like Metabox, which are free, but then you can buy all these add-ons. All the different types of things out there, and I'm speaking about just MySpace, like content types and fields plugins, but everywhere you'll see plugins like that where they've got these different models, and each one has its own struggles for figuring out how they want to make their money and how to keep going. But the continuous challenge for everyone is, how do you get your free plugin onto .org and keep it up to date with what's going on with WordPress itself and your ideas for features, and maintain all the support that comes in. So if someone asks you all these different questions throughout the week, how do you keep up with those? And what if you have got plenty more plugins that are out there for free. So you've got all this stuff, and you're like, I'm just doing this for free on the side. So that's a challenge, and I'd love to talk more about like ideas and how we can address this for at least the people who have no premium or freemium solution.
Well, I think what you just described, I mean, you really just described all of your time that goes into keeping this plugin up to date, right? Not just the challenges with most recent versions of WordPress, but just keeping the plugin maintained and current, right? All the code that goes into that. The support time is definitely a big time suck. There's a lot of your time or a team's time that goes into these things, and time is valuable. So I think there's always this perception that, how do I say this? I mean, essentially you're selling air, right? You're selling something that's intangible. It doesn't exist. It's not something I can kind of touch and feel. So it doesn't have a lot of value. But the value is really that all the time and frankly knowledge that went into the plugin, because that's the other intangible that's here. It's not just the time you're putting into this. It's all the time that you've invested in the years you've been in the WordPress space to be able to do this, right? So it's the skill that you have that has a value to it, right? And it's tough when the ecosystem that you're working in and the community that you're working in expects that everything is going to be for free, right? The expectation is there that it is free, so it doesn't really have a value. Yeah. There wasn't a question there. I was just making a big, long, drawn-out statement.
No, you're right in that, because there's like how do I put this? It's like each project that I work on, I find that there's different collections of plugins that you're going to end up having to use. Some of them will be free. Some of them you'll find that there's that one little feature that you need that's going to be the pro that you're going to, and then hopefully you'll end up using the pro part of it, the paid version of it to its fullest extent. With Scott's plugin, there's not really a pro version, more of along the lines of like there's additional things that Scott has built that he's now selling. And then also having this extra piece to it where if you just want to donate because you've used his plugin in the past, or currently, then you should probably donate just to show that, that you're supporting them.
And by the way, we say this all the time on the show. You should absolutely donate to a plugin that you're using regularly, right? That's just no brainer. And I know there's not a lot of people that do that, but if you're using something that somebody put some time into, you should give them some money for their time. Whatever you think is right, but you should be donating. But really what you're banking on, Scott, is that somebody finds the plugin valuable enough, right, and uses it enough, and kind of banking on the fact that they're going to have some sort of challenge where it's easier to pay for support and ask you how to fix it rather than trying to go through it themselves.
You've got that challenge as a person trying to get donations is like, first of all, you have to make sure they understand the value. Them downloading it for free, like you're saying, there's no intrinsic value. Like, I'm not paying you for anything, so I don't really value that. But at the same time, I'm using your plugin for my own things that are important to me. It's not working, so I'm going to hold you against the coals if it's not working, and you better fix it. And like, it should be fixed right now because my site's making money. And oh, by the way, I'm not donating to you. So there's those situations, and then you've got the other situations where you have people who are trying to figure out, okay, so I'm going to donate to you, but what am I going to get out of the donation? As a business, I don't mind paying for things, but I just can't donate things. I need to know, are we going to get better support from it? Are we going to get like new features? Like, they need something that is like one thing leads to the next. So I give you a donation, I get something in return. I need an invoice. I need these sort of things. And that style of the business operation is really tricky to work around too, because then like you can say, well, I can set up an invoice for you and just say you're getting a sponsorship and you're getting like 5 hours of my time or something. But then you can't, that doesn't scale well. And that means that you're on the hook for when that actually happens and they need those 5 hours or whatever. And then you have all the people who, this is one of the most common things we've seen from Pod's donations is they've come from premium solutions and they have paid the money. and now they're coming to use pods because they think it would be more useful for them in their use cases, and they already saw the value in ACF. So they're like, oh, I'm saving money with pods. I'll donate $50, sure, or whatever. Like, because they see, oh yeah, that's worth it to me. I'm saving money. I will at least put a little bit in once they've already started paying.
Well, I remember way early on in WordPress, you had these plugin companies that were making plugins and then selling a lifetime license. And Steve, you remember us having these conversations with various folks regarding these lifetime licenses. That's kind of like a nail in the coffin. It's like you got one and done, and that's it. And you're never going to get any money from this person ever again.
I still have several of them.
Yeah. Yeah. That you're never going to have to pay because you paid it once and that's it. And
I wouldn't mind paying for like a real license on those if they like at some point they're like, well, we can't support you after this next major version or something. But I think that lifetime license thing is extremely tricky. We get people coming to Pods Pro stuff, like my Pods Pro add-ons, and they're like, hey, can I get a lifetime license for this page builder toolkit add-on you have? I'm like, you want a lifetime license for something I have to like maintain with integration for page builders? That's pretty insane ask. Because like that's not even under my control.
But yeah, keep that comment up for a minute. That's interesting. So what Joe's saying is he's suggesting that if you set up the roadmap of where you're going, so that people can see the progress and what's next to come, I think what he's suggesting is that people might be more motivated to pay or donate money at that point. I'm wondering if you take that a step further and say, listen, almost like a Kickstarter model, right? Where you say, listen, these are the things we want to do, right? It's going to take X amount of hours, which costs this much money, right? I need to raise this many funds.
Yeah,
so funny you mentioned that, Steve.
Oh.
Daniel Bachhuber about 5 years ago, to add some more REST support into WP-CLI, had a Kickstarter. He raised just under $40,000. I want to say it was $38,000, which, oh no, I'm sorry, $32,822. And he said for every $100 contributed past $17,500, I'll contribute 1 hour of time towards the REST API project in 2016. So, I mean, he set it up, but the problem is, basically, with this is, okay, just kind of like the lifetime license, it's like a one-time thing. You're getting to pay for development for this specific thing, and after that, okay, well, I guess I start another Kickstarter project. Those are a pain in the ass to run.
That's why I like the Friends of Pods. We've got the recurring donations using Give WP, which is awesome, by the way. Awesome team. But that's helpful because if we can get people on the hook to like say, yeah, I can donate like $5 a month, sure, whatever. They add up over time. They don't pay everything we want to do, but if we can get people to do recurring donations, that's usually a lot better than one-time donations. That keeps them engaged, and it's really great to see. We've had about 140 people that are recurring right now. We still get one-time donations. We get annual donations and monthly donations, but the recurring thing is where the magic starts to happen, because then you can actually plan. You can plan around recurring. You can't really plan around one time unless you know some magic elves that can make cookies and know stats. Yeah.
Well, let's move on. I mean, not necessarily move on permanently, but just temporarily to what Jason's doing with WPwatercooler. You have sponsors that help you cover the cost to make this podcast. And I mean, you can plan the features, the things that you want to do with the shows on the network based around the sponsorships you get. If you can't cover the cost, you can't expand out and add a second or third show. You can't do those other things because you're like, okay, well, I don't have the money to cover the tools that I need to be able to do this.
Yeah, what we're using here with StreamYard, that costs money. The podcasting hosting itself, that costs money.
Paying the talent.
the talent, yeah, the makeup artists and all that stuff.
I'm not getting paid. Wait a second.
We have the Key Grip and the Best Boy and all those other people that I don't really know what they do, but those folks, we pay them. There's a lot of that stuff that has to be paid. Same with plugins. All the plugins that need to be paid. And if we talk about something and Steve jokes and says, "Oh, we'll just get Jason to go buy some plugin and screw around with it," and Jason goes and buys some plugin and screws around with it because I'm dumb and that's what I do. But it's one of those things where it's like, I want to learn about this stuff. This is the best way to kind of play around with it and figure out how it works. That stuff costs money. And podcasting itself, it's not like I'm paying or I'm making money off of any of the sponsorships. All that stuff's going straight back into it in some form or another of software or services that are involved. We had some folks in the comments here talking about small recurring fees are definitely the best. And then talking about how there's other podcasting networks like Twit where they're paying like $2 a month for for supporting them. I think the thing is those types of support systems are great when you have a huge following. $2 and a huge following, you're doing great. $2 with 5 people, you bought coffee. So it's a tricky one. Like Scott, like what's the typical amount people are donating when they donate?
Well, I'll tell you right now. I'm looking at the stats right now.
Yeah, so those are the types of things that I'm interested in, because if you don't have a whole bunch of people, I mean, you're saying 100 plus is what you have that are supporting you. Hopefully they're paying a good chunk of change, so you're able to kind of make that happen. So what is that average?
Average about $6 per person on average. That's for how it's averaged out by monthly too. So there's annual donors and there's monthly donors. So once I average those two, then I average the number of donors we have. It's about $6 per donor per month.
Right. Which over time is per person they're paying a decent amount per person. It just it requires them to be kind of in aggregate to get to that point where it makes it so that you're able to either hire other people to help you out, or you're just paying yourself for the time that you're spending on it.
I'm going to ask this question, and it's not meant to tee anything up. I actually don't know the answer, but are free plugins like yours that are available on the repo, is there a possible acquisition at some point?
Well, there's another challenge. Like, okay, so how do you acquire a free plugin that operates on donations? How do you acquire a plugin that's a small plugin? Like, that's not always an option for everyone. I think but that's obviously a route someone could take if they're like, okay, I'm just done with this. I need someone to take it over. That's usually done like someone will adopt it. Like, hey, can someone just pick this plugin up?
So first, I
understand
you acquire it.
Hang on one second. I understand the adoption process because we've talked about that on the show before, and I get that. I'm really talking about, if a company wanted to come in and say, we want pods as part of our suite of tools.
Well, I would say, it depends on exactly their intents. I've thought about this over the last 11, 12 years, 13 years, whatever it's been now, 13, I think. And I was like, each time I thought about it, I was like, I want what's best for pods. I don't want someone to acquire it to destroy it. I don't want someone to acquire it to then say it's a premium product now, or I don't want someone to acquire it and say we're not going to update it. It's just here for our branding and for SEO and all the buzz that we get from it. Like, I want someone who's in it like me. I want someone who has the passion, the drive, the ambition, the ideas, all the stuff. Like, if someone could just hand me money, I could do all the things I want to do with it. But I know they need to make money. So there's some give and take there, I think, to address, like, how do you actually turn pods into a something that can make up for the acquisition cost. That's right. The challenge with a lot of the plugins that have been acquired. Like, you'll see someone get acquired and then either maybe it'll just go away because they can't actually make back the money, or they never intended to support that product and it was just going to always be shut down.
Every time we talk about an acquisition on this show, it's always the same reaction from the four of us. So I was like, oh God, I hope I'm still going to be able to use it a year from now.
Yeah, like ACF when it got acquired, people were like, no, we got to switch.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and then half the internet has that one avatar plugin installed on their on their website, and then it turned into a full like membership suite. Isn't that what happened with that? So it's like you end up having those sorts of things where money changes the direction in which you're going to be taking those 100,000 plus people that are currently using, or 100,000 plus sites that are currently have pods installed, and what's going to happen then, sort of thing. So that's a tricky one.
I mean, everything we talked about so far, I mean, there is a business model there, either whether somebody acquired you or you wanted to kind of change it now. I mean, there is a business model where you can switch to premium, right? You've got this user base, you switch to premium. Now there's going to be a certain percentage of people that buy the premium plugin, but like you said, that's not in the best interest of the plugin.
Yeah, I kind of, at the start of the year, January of this year, I launched Pods Pro by SKC Dev. That's my own business, my own add-ons that are premium, that are really focused on extending the extended universe for pods, and not really focusing on Pods core itself, like adding features to core. It's more about these things that really aren't supposed to be in core. We're not taking things out of core. We're just adding things onto it to make it even better with integrations and all that stuff that actually takes time and money.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That actually also, again, to go back to WP-CLI and Daniel Bachhuber, around the time that he launched this Kickstarter, I remember for a minute he was selling premium WP-CLI commands that he had released for a brief period of time. I'll have to go through my bookmarks and dig that one up. I think he just eventually ended up releasing them for free, but it was something that companies. I was at WP Engine at the time that this happened, and I think I don't want to speak out of turn, but there was at least discussion of, some of these are really useful, we should pay for this. So there are definite things, but that wasn't because WP-CLI is officially a WordPress project. He can't say okay, this is, so he had to brand it and sell it as these extended commands by Daniel Bachhuber.
You can't buy WP-CLI Pro.
Right.
Well, that's the situation I had with Pods, because we have sponsors and donors. I don't want to lose. There's no way I could launch a premium service and then cut all that off, because I don't have the money. Pods didn't have any money saved up. It's what we use is what we get, and that situation. So that's kind of the situation I had. I had to figure out, how do I do it separately and keep Pods itself centered in community and donations and stuff like that.
And that's why the lifetime people had the same problem. You build a plugin and then you sell it with a lifetime license, and you're like, oh, so all these people bought lifetime licenses. We don't have any money to be able to spend on development now. Cool.
Yeah, it's
But
good
now
for
we
a
still
little
have
bit.
to support these people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to drive traffic, but now you have to deal with the traffic.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think you've obviously you've tried all the things that we're thinking about here. It's like you've tried selling additional stuff, so you have the additional add-ons that you're selling, but then you're also having this additional piece to it, which is, if you want to donate, you can donate as well. What about sponsorships? Just having a company who has some money that maybe is using the product, and just have them be the one that sponsors it.
Yeah, sponsorships is really hard. It's friggin' hard. How do you find sponsors? Just someone tell me. Where do you find money that people want to spend to support open source free plugins that are trying to do good in the world? What's the secret? Especially, it's September, so everyone's budgets is out, so they're not looking at budgets until later on in the actual end of year, and so how do you really tap into all these sponsors? And I think that goes into something I really, really wanted to talk about today, which is about not just pods. I'm talking WordPress.org wide. How do we connect all of the free plugins? Anyone who wants to get money to help fund their work in making WordPress even better, how do we get these people connected to sponsors? And how do we connect them, the people who are sponsors, to those people? And how do we make it so you don't have to have $500 to throw at something. How do we make it so that Steve and me and Jason and whoever else want to say, I got $10 a month, here, throw it at my plugins I have in my list, like a Patreon kind of situation where You have a set number budget, and you can throw it at different people as you wish, and it just bills monthly. If we could find a solution for WordPress.org to support everyone in a way that's very free and open, that's honest, and it makes it easy for those donors and sponsors to connect, that is the ultimate best case scenario for WordPress.org long term. Otherwise, we're looking at free plugins having the same issues going forward with blocks, Gutenberg compatibility as the WordPress releases go out. It's gonna just drain our resources and talent.
I have a good example.
Go ahead.
So I use this product called Setapp that's made by a company called MacPaw, and MacPaw they make a bunch of different different applications for the Mac, but Setapp is their version of their own app store. So essentially, you submit your product to their app store, and then for a one-time fee, for a monthly fee, you get access to all of those different applications. Having something like that, essentially a marketplace out of if you took Jetpack and actually had a bunch of different plugins that somebody else made, and not had them acquire them, but rather just let them be and then pay them out every once in a while, that might be your way of doing what you're talking about.
I think that's also tricky because, well, first of all, it has to be very, very much tied to WordPress.org. If it's not tied to WordPress itself as an open source project and tied to WordPress.org in some official way, like maybe not their money handling, but at least them integrating with the service to allow that, I think that it's not gonna work. Anything less than WordPress.org integration or on official capacity thing there, I think it won't really adopt, and it won't even make it easy for anyone.
Right.
So let's go big. Okay, let's say Microsoft wants to sponsor Pods. Okay, now Pods becomes Microsoft Pods for WordPress. Okay, that's the new title. Is
Teams.
That even what's that?
Teams for Windows.
So is Microsoft Pods is that even allowed in the WordPress plugin repository anymore?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on what Microsoft would do
with a sponsor, with a sponsor name like that. I mean, is
Yeah.
there anything that goes against the terms and conditions of the?
There's terms in the UI, you can't say, oh, here, pay $5 and I'll unlock a feature inside the plugin. You can pay to you can link off to a site that they can go buy the pro version or an add-on or something like that, but you can't have those kind of upsells. And I think the same thing applies to the branding. It's different because branding is not you upselling the brand, oh, buy all our Microsoft products, click here. That's fine. They're fine with that. They just don't want it anywhere else except for your settings screens, your own Pods.
What you're saying is if now Microsoft is sponsoring Pods and you put the Microsoft logo in the corner on every Pod screen, that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah. So I technically could seek out a huge sponsor and say, yeah, I'll put your name and face on everything. But then you also have to think, do I like this sponsor? Do I want them to be the face of everything?
Steve loves firing people.
Let me get Jeff Bezos on the line. I'll get you. It'll become Amazon Pods for WordPress.
Prime. You do it in a season.
But
you set up in a seasonal thing or something.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, once you have that sponsor logo in the corner of Pods, you're going to lose some of your audience.
True. Yeah.
Any acquisition. I mean, let's revisit what we were talking about just a few minutes ago. Any of these Yoast get snatched up by GoDaddy. There are people who hate GoDaddy, passionately, and rightfully so, given some of the stuff that happened, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, around just how sexist and nasty the former head of the company was, and all of this stuff. And they've made huge improvements in things. But there are people who are fool me once, okay. Fool me twice, nah.
We won't
get
fooled again.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So they just won't have it. So now, and like Scott said, somebody acquired ACF, or ACF was acquired.
Delicious Brains.
Yeah, thank you. And now, there are people who I mean, I like Delicious Brains, but I'm sure that there's somebody out there who's like, screw these guys. I don't want anything to do with them. And that sucks.
Delicious
but I mean, it's
but Delicious Brains is pretty. They don't really brand their stuff throughout all of their products. I have several of their products, and you don't really know who the owner is of those products.
Right.
It's pretty silent.
Yeah, I mean, I personally host my sites on their Spin Up WP, and I mean, there's very little Delicious Brains branding in there.
I'm not arguing with you. I mean, if somebody doesn't like Delicious Brains and they find that the plugin was tied back to them, it's owned by them, then that can happen. I just think Delicious Brains is pretty smart about branding or lack thereof.
I'm sorry, it wasn't GoDaddy that acquired Yoast. It was EIG, which is like even more odious.
Oh boy. So we're gonna do the outro before we get sued. No, just kidding. I do want to let you know that next week is our 400th episode, and it's our 9th year of doing this thing. 9 years, crazy. So we've
episode 400 on the 9th birthday.
Yeah,
like we couldn't have planned that better. Yeah,
it's a trip. Crazy. All right, well, here's our outro. See y'all later. All right, folks, go over to WPwatercooler.com/subscribe, where you can subscribe to all this content on YouTube, on Spotify, on Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. And while you're there, make sure you subscribe to DevBranch, because we put out all of our content over there each month over on DevBranch as well. Talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.